everybody. It's Dan.
And Ron.
And this is a nominee. And we got a very special episode for you today because we've both survived yet another decade. This is the fourth. I'm heading into the fourth decade I have been alive in, even though I'm only 30.
Let's see. I think I'm heading into my fifth. Let's see. No, is this my fifth?
This might be your fifth.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. There's lots of silence. Oh,
this is the sound of Ron counting decades.
And I'm counting with my fingers.
And I think like nothing quite gets across the point that the years are flying by, quite like the sound of Ron counting decades on his fingers. And that gets us to why this is such a special episode. This is an episode I've been wanting to do for a while, but you can only do it in a pretty small time frame once every 10 years. That means that, I guess we're doing a marathon recording session, so this is going to be 2 episodes. But for this half of how we experience the episode, you're experiencing it as its own distinct, unique episode. We're going to go over Ron's top 10 movies of the last 10 years, also known as the 2010s. In part 2, we're going to go over my top 10 TV shows of the 2010s, and we got some bonus content, we got some honorable mentions, and this is going to be a lot of fun because Ron has watched an ungodly number of movies, and I have watched enough TV to make people worried about me. So you're going to get some really good stuff in these 2 episodes, and it's just fun to compare and contrast lists. I didn't come with a top 10 movie list of the last 10 years just because I have not seen a lot of new movies in the last 10 years because A, I've been watching so much TV, and B, I've just been watching a lot of older movies. So I guess I'll leave it to Ron here. He needs no introduction, though I just gave him one, so he has an extraneous introduction now.
Yeah, most of you have probably heard me before. Well, if you listen to any of the previous podcasts, then with the exception of one, you've heard me before.
We were originally going to do top 23 episodes of Anomaly in the 2010s, and we did publish that list. If you want to see that list, I guess just stay on the web page that you're on because they're probably there. If you made it this far, you were in the land of Anomaly, and there's no turning back. So, with that said, here's Ron's top 10. So, what's number 10? Are they in any order? Because I got lazy on mine, and mine's going to be kind of certain things I'm going to say are better than other things in my opinion, but I didn't come up with a completely formal order for them. So, I guess what's your methodology today, Ron?
No, this isn't a formal order. Actually, it's not top 10 from 10th to 9th, etc. It is my top 10 favorites. And just to be clear, we're not...
AKA the 10 best movies ever made objectively. Somehow they all were released in the last 10 years because we are living in the best of all possible worlds.
And the best movies of the last 10 years also happen to be my favorite movies of all time.
And if you disagree, you're objectively a bad person. So with that out of the way...
Yeah, so these are my top 10 favorite movies of the last 10 years. I'm not saying that these are the best movies. Despite my watching an ungodly number, you might be horrified at some of the stuff I've picked because I watch a lot of stuff that's not necessarily no one would consider best of anything.
Well, but if you've seen more of it, then you might be seeing something that the rest of us missed, and I think that's why it's important to go over these lists. Because I always try with like a top 10 list or like a filmmaker's top 10 list. It's never going to be my 10 favorite movies. I don't really want it to be my 10 favorite movies, but it gives me some insight into like how does this person watch a movie, right?
Right.
And that's always the fun of these lists, I feel like.
Top 10 Kevin Smith movies.
Top 10 Kevin Smith movies. Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, did you see the AV Club? They did their 20 worst movies of 2019.
Uh-huh.
Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which I really enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
I feel like
I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was necessarily I wouldn't call it a great movie, but
it's not a great movie, but I wouldn't call it the 12th worst movie of 2019.
Yeah, no, it was enjoyable. Not in an ironic way. It was enjoyable for what it was.
Yeah, and I thought it was a pretty earnest film, and we got your back, Kevin Smith, so you should come on the podcast sometime.
You're still amongst our favorites, and Clerks is amongst our favorite writers, directors, and Clerks is in my top list, favorites of all time, and, top 3, actually. But with all that said, well, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is not in my top 10 of the year. So let's go. Here's my top 10 favorite movies of 2010 to 2019. I'll start with The Big Short, which I wonder if that fits, how many people would consider that best. But again, this isn't best.
Well, we only care about what one person considers best right now, and that's Ron.
Right, and that's best for him.
Yeah, if you want to do your own best list, you're probably listening to this on a laptop that has a microphone. You could very easily create your own podcast, but then you'd be sitting in a room talking to yourself, and we'd all be worried about you. So find a co-host, and then you can kind of enable each other on that front. But so The Big Short, I believe I saw half of that movie. It's about the 2008 financial crash, correct?
Yes, it is. And we see the perspective that we get is of I would say the insider folks, the financial folks. We see very little of the, well, I'll try not to spoil these too much. Not like we normally do, because these are still, we're talking about fairly recent movies. I feel not just less of a desire to spoil them, because it's never a desire to spoil. I have more desire not to spoil them.
Because we're kind of recommending them to be watched. We're not necessarily analyzing them, so that's another thing that makes us very different, I believe, than other episodes we've done.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, so we see the people on the inside. It stars Steve Carell is the main guy, a bunch of other famous actors in it.
Doesn't Christian Bale have another crazy wig? Because Christian Bale's method acting through his hair has been one of my favorite developments of the decade. I haven't rewatched American Hustle since it came out, but if Christian Bale's hair in that movie could have gotten the Best Actor Oscar, or let me say, if I was the Academy, Christian Bale's hair in that movie would have gotten the Best Actor Oscar for that year, because it's just
just for the hair.
It's so. I mean, do you remember his hair in it? Or that one shot where he's got the terrible toupee. I don't think it's a fat suit, because Christian Bale doesn't do fat suits, and he's just kind of crying to himself inside of this rotating rack of laundry, and that might be my favorite shot from any movie of the 2010s.
Is that going to be in your list? Oh no,
that's my entire list.
Yeah, that's your entire list. So
so Christian Bale has.
Is it a wig?
I presume it's a wig, or is there something, or
I don't remember. I don't pay enough attention. I don't pay as much attention as you do to Christian Bale's hair. So maybe I'm missing out on something. No one does. That's true. So that's that's a good point. Except Christian Bale. Actually, maybe not even Christian Bale.
On that, yeah.
Maybe Christian Bale even doesn't pay as much attention as you do. So.
Someday the internet will recognize Christian Bale's hair as the new Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, it's got Christian Bale in it as well. So Christian Bale plays somebody who really knows financial stuff and pores over amazing, or figures out amazing data. And he also plays the drums very loudly. And he's clearly on the spectrum. I mean, there's no question there. It is totally played out, and it's at the same time realistic and funny. I mean, the movie, it's a serious movie, but it's a comedy. It's funny, and it's directed
by Adam McKay, right? The guy who did Anchorman.
It's the same guy that did Anchorman and a bunch of other movies with Will Ferrell. So yeah, it's directed by Adam McKay. It might be written by him. I'm not certain. Yeah,
because he's taken a political turn in the last 10 years.
Right. He's done much more serious film, taken a political turn. Vice came out at the end of last year. I hated Vice. It's one of the few movies I've ever walked out on. I walked out on Vice after about 10 or 15 minutes and went across the hall and watched, was it Watson and Holmes with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly? So I went from an Adam McKay film to a Will Ferrell film, and it was not a good movie, but I enjoyed it more than I was enjoying Vice. I expected with Vice something like The Big Short, and it was not. It was not amusing. It was
like Woody Allen trying to do Ingmar Bergman.
Close to. Well, no, I think he was doing his own thing, and I think he had his own voice. I just didn't like that voice.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, so Steve Carell plays a somewhat thoughtless. He can be thoughtless moments when dealing with other people. I mean, you see at the beginning, it walks into a meeting for people that are grieving, I believe, but he's on the phone talking as he walks in while somebody else is giving their story. But he is actually, I don't know, the heart of the movie, or he's the one that actually cares about the impact that this is going to have. So he's not taking advantage of people per se. He's taking advantage of the financial system itself. He's working within it. But yeah, this story told it was a serious story, obviously, but it told it also in a way. There was some stuff, some clever things in it, in which the movie would stop and suddenly turn, and these actors would show up as them, or people would show up as themselves, so like some kind of celebrities, and they would explain things in a very simple way using some analogies. And yeah, I would not have gotten those. I'm terrible with finances. I want to say global and personal. But so this really helped explain it. But it was fun. And you see what's going on. So and Steve Carell's great.
And that's important stuff we should all know, because they're trying to pull that shit again. Look up slabs. Look up derivatives from rental futures. But that's a much more depressing podcast with
as we look forward to another financial meltdown.
That's all that's going to spoil is the U.S. economy.
Right. So it won't be global this time.
I mean,
because the last one was global.
The last one was global. I feel like a lot of the international firms have done at least something to insulate themselves from. I mean, at least if I was working in a financial institution right now, I would want to be in any country besides the United States. I would be trying to insulate myself from the U.S. economy as much as possible to avoid, because there's like a huge amount of political instability, which is also tantamount to extreme economic instability.
Right.
If you have, God forbid, something like a civil war, and you have investments in the United States, those aren't really very safe investments, are they?
No, not at all. So. At least Iceland has learned by this point, because they had a lot of people.
Well, Iceland,
they actually went to jail. So.
Yeah, they just let their banks die. They were just like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to let this wither. The U.S. They sent all the heads of the big banks to go see Barack Obama, as Timothy Geithner described it in his memoir. They all walked in thinking that their heads were going to get chopped off, metaphorically, and then Obama was just basically, hey guys, seems like times are rough out there. How do we all work together to fix this? And that's how you end up with a lot of the problems we have right now. So maybe Adam McKay is going to have to make The Big Short 2 soon.
The short, the small long.
Yeah.
Because, long, we've been waiting 10 years for the next financial meltdown.
The Bigger Short.
The Bigger Short. That's a good name. So, anyways, I've seen this movie 3 times. I actually introduced it to a couple of people the second time. And the third time I watched it, I was actually having trouble sleeping. And I was like, what do I want to watch? I was like, oh, I know. This is a comforting movie. And it's comforting in the way that I knew it and was involved in it. It was familiar. It was comfortable in the way that it was familiar too. And like
I watch like Noam Chomsky lectures the way people watch those ASMR videos, because it's like, I know this stuff. But he just has such a calming voice.
Oh, that's great.
Even though he's like, everything's wrong. It's terrible.
So that's The Big Short. That's, again, I'm not saying it's my number one favorite of the year, but it's in the top 10. All right, Logan. Logan with Hugh Jackman and oh my God, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart. I wanted to say Patrick McGowan, which I knew was wrong. So
that'll have to be one of those AI CGI movies.
Yeah, or dig him up from the grave, and
if you just dump enough whiskey on the computer,
although digging digging him up would not have been too inappropriate for this movie. But so Logan, so got to have a superhero movie, I guess, on here, because I watch every superhero movie out there, but I wouldn't consider any other than my favorites or best. So but this one was, but also Logan was very different. It was much more serious. It wasn't funny. It takes place in the future. The performances are great. The story is great. We see this is years after the X-Men. I can't remember if they mostly died or disbanded. This isn't a spoiler. This isn't the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Right.
And Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, and Patrick Stewart, Professor X. Professor X, his powers are starting to. He's having less control over them, and they're really starting to screw things up. And he has to take this. I think it's a medication to help with his mind, but it's.
Sounds right.
Yeah, but it's a little bit like.
People have been telling me to see this movie for at least 5 years, and I still have not seen it. So I'll have to see this now because my friend of mine in Texas has been like, "This is the only superhero movie you actually need to see."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Like,
I would agree. The problem is that the backstory, and so you have to know it. It really helps. I don't know if have to, but I think it really helps to know who Professor X is, to know who Wolverine is, to know who the X-Men were. You don't need to know much.
well,
but
that's
you need to know-
basically on the U.S. citizenship test at this point, right? Like,
What
who
you-
doesn't know who Professor X is, really?
Right. What you need is the is somebody else to give you like the 5 minutes of background.
Right.
And then another half hour is you ask questions and they give you answers. But just a brief primer on it would be sufficient. But Logan, so I saw that a couple of times, and the first time I saw it was I went to visit a friend of mine. I went to visit a friend in Amsterdam. I flew in there, got there at about probably about 10 a.m. Got into the city by 11. We went and had some food, and then we went to see Logan. I went to see Logan in a Dutch movie theater. Really nice theater.
In English or
It was in
with subtitles?
English with Dutch subtitles.
Oh, nice.
So that's mostly how they do the movies there. They mostly don't dub them.
Yeah, I guess it's not a big enough market to.
Right, it's a pretty
That
small
was always
country.
like a theory about why the French loved Jerry Lewis.
Uh-huh.
Was that supposedly whoever dubbed over all of his lines in French had like a very sexy, seductive voice, unlike Jerry Lewis.
Oh, that's great.
I never found out the truth of that. But
So they didn't even think he was all that funny. They just loved his sexy, seductive voice.
I guess so, yeah.
But yeah, so I highly recommend Logan. And watching it in Dutch or watching it in a Dutch theater was extra cool. I actually like when I go travel places, whether it's different places in the U.S. or around the world. I like going to see movies in all these different places. Part of it is just you could probably guess how much I love watching movies, how much I love movies. Period. As a concept, I guess.
To see a lot of the movies you have watched, you need to love movies in the abstract.
Yeah, because of all the garbage that I've watched. Yeah. Okay, another movie, Young Adult, in which Charlize Theron plays a pretty much immature adult who goes back to her hometown for, I believe. Wow, I should have looked up all the synopses because I don't remember movies very well. I could barely remember which movies I've watched in the last 10 years. I had to go to some of these long lists of movies from the last decade, not to see, oh yeah, those will be my favorites. It was to see, okay, what have I watched in the last 10 years that I might like?
Didn't Nietzsche say that the most horrible curse is to never forget?
Oh, so I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Hashtag blessed.
By those standards, at least. I remember seeing that in some essay about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind when I was in college.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Right.
Hey, and what do you call it? Arrested Development.
Oh yeah. It's
Although that was a little
Forget Me
worse.
Nows.
Yeah. Although that was basically roofies. So, yeah. The
Lornette self-roofing is
right. Oh yeah. The
Always a
self-roofing was
joy.
fine. It was the roofing somebody else that was a problem. So that was.
he like chloroforms a puppet at one point.
Forgot about that.
That was such a great show.
All right, so young adult, she goes back to town, and I think it's for her ex is getting married, and she's still in love with him, and she has all these ideas of how her life will be better when she goes back to her hometown, and it's not. But we see her doing all these immature things, and but it's actually again, it's got a serious undertone or story, but it's really funny. And I've actually got two Charlize Theron movies on this list. The other one is Mad Max Fury Road, and got to include an action movie on there. I'm not an action movie fan. I'm not into them. Mad Max Fury Road, I was on the edge of my seat for 20 minutes, and that is not an exaggeration. I literally was at the edge of my seat for 20 minutes, and usually I fall asleep during movies. Believe it or not, I love them so much. I'll fall asleep. But there was for maybe 5, 10 minutes, unless I'm really tired. I did not fall asleep at all in this one, and not just because it was an action movie. It's because I was just so mesmerized. I don't need to explain what Mad Max Fury Road was.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like I've only seen half of it because I've been waiting for it to come back to a big screen because I felt like the first time I tried to watch it was on a laptop, and that's not the way to watch that movie at all.
Mad Max Fury Road?
Yeah.
Oh no,
like on a tiny screen, and I was just kind of like, oh okay, it's a thing, and yeah, I need to do it. I mean, maybe now with the sound system, I could do it proper justice, but I do remember really liking the lack of dialogue. It's just an incredibly confidently made film. Like even on a laptop, I could tell that. Like the guy, there's no like, oh, this is a pretty shot, so I'm keeping it in. Every shot is there for a reason. Every shot is moving towards something. When he doesn't need to use sound to display something, he's not going to use sound. There's not like a lot of underlining. Like I feel like there's a lot of films where you have a lot of unnecessary dialogue that just sort of presumes that the audience is too stupid to understand the thing they just saw, and that's not Mad Max Fury Road in the slightest. No,
you should definitely, watching it on a small screen, definitely. I mean, why bother? Although I did watch Dunkirk on an airplane on the little screen, and it was still amazing to me. But so much of it is the story and the performances. It's not so much about the. It is a little less about the visuals, although I do want to watch it again on a bigger screen.
I've always wanted to see Con Air on an airplane. And I don't think that's ever going to happen, but
that'd be great.
Like especially the scene where Steve Buscemi, like they start playing Sweet Home Alabama. He's like, why are we playing a song by a band where most of the people died in a plane crash right after we hijacked this plane? Right.
Or the Nicolas Cage version of Left Behind. That I saw at a hotel room. Again, I was having trouble.
About right.
I was having trouble sleeping. It's like, oh my God, there's a Nicolas Cage version of Left Behind. I am so watching that, and I won't even go into what it was like. It's a Nicolas Cage movie, so it doesn't matter what else is around him. It was Nicolas Cage, so automatically worth watching.
Oh yeah, and Con Air has like the best cast of any film in the '90s, I think, because you got like John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Nicolas Cage, John Cusack. I think there's like one or two other people, and they're just at the height of their powers. You get them all together for this like incredibly stupid plane heist movie, like unbelievably stupid movie, and it just I love it. But
I'm trying to remember where else I heard that Con Air was a great film from, because that certainly I never thought of it in that category. So I think you're the first person I've heard say that, and I was like, wow, really?
I mean, I don't know if it's a great film, but it's like really, if you want that kind of like, if you want a dumb action film that is self-actualized and has no qualms about itself being a dumb action film, that's your movie. Con Air, like there's no other dumb action movie I could think of where it's just so at peace with itself as a dumb action movie.
And which Mad Max Fury Road is not. It is not a dumb action movie. It is an action movie, but it's not dumb. I'm not saying it's the smartest thing in the world, but
but it's better than. I mean, there's more thought that went into it than Con Air, and it's not thought that was. It's not like there's no self-justification or anything. It's not like, oh, we're gonna make a dumb action movie. It's not like Day After Tomorrow where it's like, oh, it's a dumb action movie, but it's about climate change, so it's immediately less dumb, but kind of more dumb because it's just kind of trying to jam. It's like if you crushed a multivitamin into a Snickers bar, right? Like it's still a fucking Snickers bar. There's this bitter aftertaste, and are you really healthier at the end of it?
Right. I need to. I occasionally drink. I forget what the brand name is. Actually, I try almost every day to drink one of those mixed fruit-like drinks. It's like double berry or tropical paradise or whatever, but it's fortified with protein because I need the protein. But yeah, I can.
That's always a good sign when something you're ingesting is named like it was a place.
But yeah, after a while, I start drinking so much of it, and I don't like the good flavor that much anymore. I can start tasting the chalkiness, and Yeah. So Mad Max Fury Road. So those that was one of my favorites. All right. I think this is the only foreign language film on the list, but it's Look Who's Back.
America.
America, yeah. And Nazi Germany. Do you know about Look Who's Back?
You mentioned it to me. I have not seen it, so I guess like a brief explanation of the premise might be in order because it's quite the premise.
So this is it's a German film, and it begins with Hitler, who is old. He wakes up, and he wakes up 70 years after World War II is over, and he just he wakes up, isn't quite sure what's going around because the world has changed so much around him, and people think that he is a Hitler impersonator. They don't realize that he's the real thing, but he really is Hitler. And so it follows him, and he ends up even getting involved in a TV show starring him. But there's also it's funny. It's really, the premise is funny. It's really, well, if you think that Hitler comedies are palatable, like Jojo Rabbit, I know it was controversial. I'll be honest, I don't quite understand the controversy because in my perspective is, a Hitler comedy, what a great idea. Because if you can laugh at someone, it means you've won.
Yeah, because when you take it with this solemn seriousness, it gives the figure this kind of negative power. Like I'm trying to, Judith Butler wrote about this after Gender Trouble, like 10 years after Gender Trouble, but like kind of the sort of negative or authenticity in the negative, right? Like the kind of appeal of counterculture is that people disapprove of it so solemnly. So then if you create this kind of air of like, ooh, this is so spooky, even like Mick Jagger and David Bowie got like roped into that in the early 70s. So did George Lucas. Because of the fact you couldn't get copies of Triumph of the Will, so it was seen as this like underground, the ultimate countercultural thing because it was against everything that the culture was rightfully trying to run away from after the horrors of the Second World War. And that's like how to deal with kind of cultural contraband is, I don't think that's a discussion that's anywhere near finished, right? Like there's,
right.
We don't know how people actually take in film, video, etc., how it psychologically impacts them on a mass level, outside of like broad kind of B.F. Skinner behaviorist, like, oh, if you like jam the word in their head enough times, they'll go like buy Coca-Cola or something. But in terms of dealing with complicated parts of the past, we don't know anything about how that works, and we kind of fill that void of not knowing with a lot of kind of hopeful projection, right? Like the TV shows about anti-heroes, the audience is going to be morally horrified by the anti-hero, even though like Twitter kind of called that out as bullshit with a lot of the anti-hero narratives we've seen in the last 20 years. Or Scarface, right? Like there's a lot of people who take Scarface not as like a cautionary narrative. I'm talking about the Al Pacino Scarface, the Howard Hawks Scarface, but yeah, we don't. So I don't feel like making light of Hitler. I don't feel like we know enough to go either way on that as like an issue. I think people are afraid that they're going to come across as uncouth if they're not immediately offended by certain things, instead of like analyzing the thing and coming to a more nuanced understanding of it. Because if anything, we should be like incredibly offended by white savior narratives, which thankfully we're finally coming around to that after 40 years of endless white savior narratives, right? But anyway, that's a whole.
But say in this, it's not like we're sympathizing with Hitler. It's like, oh, poor guy, the world has changed around him and all that. No, it's actually a movie about, it actually gets more serious. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it really, throughout it addresses current racism and anti-immigrant stances and white supremacy and all that in Germany, and people dealing with it.
Which, I mean, that is becoming a problem again in Germany. That's like Europe a lot, it's not just England. Like the UK, I feel like is ground zero for this like sudden seeming seemingly out of nowhere rightward backlash. But they're having issues in Germany with far-right anti-immigrant parties now.
Yeah, and that's actually what this movie addresses. It's a comedy. Again, it's a serious topic, but it's a comedy. I mean, you see, I really like comedies. I really like mediocre comedies. I love well done comedies, but I've exhausted most of them, and so I'm stuck with mediocre comedies. And then moving on to bad comedies too. So serious topic, obviously, racism and the rise of the far right and all that. And this is, Germans dealing with. It's actually based on a book, on a satirical book that was very popular in Germany. So anyways, that's a way of dealing with it. This isn't about what a nice guy Hitler is and poor guy, fish out of water. It is fish out of water, sort of, but you see that actually he's not so much. It's a small pool, and there's other people jumping into it. So, all right, next movie, Inside Out, because I guess it has to be an animated film on the list
I
too.
don't think I even heard of this one. What was it?
Really? Oh, it's about
Like what studio did it, or was it Pixar, Disney, or was it one of the other ones?
I think it was Pixar, Disney. I guess this is something to look up, but I'm pretty sure it was Pixar. The four main characters are inside the head of a girl. She's probably like tween or early teenager, because she's starting to go through some mental and emotional changes. But it's happy, sad, and then I forget what the other two are. I don't know, angry, vain, or something. I don't know. It's four basic. A nominee, right? So no, they're an actual. Actually, it's emotions. It's emotions. It's not the mental. It's the emotional part.
Pixar, please steal something from us so we can sue you and retire.
These are they're the characters in her head, and the happiness. Again, I'm not spoiling anything. Probably most of you've seen it, except for Dan. And
so this is like a huge hit. This is like the Dan's Living Under a Rock movie.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Totally. This was a huge hit, and it's really touching, and it's actually a really good and maybe one of the best depictions that I've seen in film of depression. The importance of being sad and of empathizing with someone, of empathy, and how to do it, and how making someone smile is not the same thing as empathizing with them. You might be sympathizing with them. You might be you're trying to help me, say, oh, I realize you're feeling sad, so hey, be happy. But in fact, somebody's feeling sad. That's not necessarily what they need. They need someone to understand that they're feeling sad. Someone who's depressed needs someone to understand what the depression is like. So this movie actually handles this really well, because happiness doesn't understand that. Suddenly it seems like sadness is screwing up the whole ecosystem with the mind, and happiness and I think sadness have to go and sort of fix things. We slowly start to learn that sadness isn't a bad thing. There's a reason that people feel sad, and it's actually helpful. So, and it was a really touching movie, and I don't think it wasn't just clawing at your heartstrings. I know I've just confused two metaphors, but it's true. It's not clawing at your heartstrings. It was a serious topic, but it was cute and amusing and funny, and I'm pretty sure it brought a tear to my eye. I don't cry often, but
I've never seen Ron cry. I've given him like endless noogies, and he just.
I did just see A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and it wasn't a very good film. There were parts of it that were good. It was uneven. It was an uneven film. I didn't think the main storyline went well with presenting Mr. Rogers. Over time, it did a better job of that, I think. But practically every time that Mr. Rogers was on the screen, that's Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers, a really good performance as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it brought it didn't just bring a tear to my eye. The tears were rolling down the side of my the side of my eye, and not quite to the cheek maybe, but getting close there. So my eyes were definitely wet like throughout half of the movie. The portions in which we see Mr. Rogers.
I always wanted to make a Mr. Rogers movie where it's basically the Truman Show, and it turns out the neighborhood was entirely constructed, and then he goes through this like voyage through like history's greatest horrors or something, or he goes through this like Candide situation after they let him out of the neighborhood bubble. I don't know if I really grew up with Mr. Rogers, though. I feel like a lot of people will probably be offended by that more than...
Yeah, geez, Dan, just for that Just for that, we've lost some listeners already. Actually, no. Hopefully we haven't lost them because I grew up in Mr. Rogers and I love Mr. Rogers, obviously. And you can see throughout the movies, Mr. Rogers is so important to so many people. Have you watched any episodes of Mr. Rogers?
I'm sure I saw some of them. I mean, I was a big Sesame Street kid. I watched a lot of Sesame Street.
Same here.
My parents would not let me watch Barney. Good on them. I now recognize, because I've watched like a decent amount of children's television as an adult, because A, I like smoking marijuana. B, it's just some of the most bizarrely constructed. Like, I'm always really attracted to a medium in a state of not being entirely sure what it is, right? Like pre-feature films, so like silent films before 1915 or so, comic strips from the turn of the century, stuff like that. And kids TV, some of it is very formulaic. A lot of it is in this constant state of becoming, though, because of the fact that it's made by adults. They're kind of guessing what kids' brains look like or work like. So you'll see a lot of really weird, surreal imagery, especially with the sound off. Like, sometimes the sound on those things is just unbearable. But
it's adults trying to figure out the mind of a child, but it's working because it's so popular. I mean,
there's definitely some kids' TV that just it shows up for a hot sec and then it gets buried.
Oh yeah, but that's true for adult television too.
Oh yeah, it's true of any television. Yeah,
right. What I'm saying is that there's kids' TV shows that are popular. They last for years, and so somebody's understanding something.
Right, Mr. Rogers definitely understood kids better than whoever was in the Barney suit. That's for sure.
And movies for adults or anywhere in between little kids and adults, by which I mean teenagers and tweens, and it's the same there. But you take any adult film, you have to have somebody who understands what people want. Now, granted, I'm getting into the whole market-driven film and all that. Now we go back to the Martin Scorsese versus Marvel film, but it could be a small film that resonates with some people. So it worked with somebody.
Yeah, but to make a truly great film, to be like a Jean-Luc Godard, you need to know exactly what people don't want and then force it in their face.
John Cassavetes, as we talked about in the last
some
episode.
of it, yeah. Like I always appreciate a film that doesn't seem to care whether I like it or not.
Even movies that are people doing it for themselves. It's like, this is the movie I want to make. This is me. This is the one I want to watch. Usually they have in mind also what do people want to see. Not dumbing it down. Not lowest common denominator for that purpose. But okay, how do I present this in a way that people will actually be interested in it too, not just me?
Oh yeah, and the like recent surge in kind of not quite autobiographical or like very self-exploratory TV and cinema, and there's been like an explosion of it, I feel like, in the last 20 years. It's always really funny to me because I always think of and I don't think this is necessarily indicative of that, but I read a lot of Henry James when I was in college, and Henry James' definition of bad writing is writing which tells you more about the author than what's being written about, than about what's being written about. He probably phrased it much more eloquently than I just did, but
no, I totally get it. Even however you phrased it, I got it.
Yeah. And at the same time, that can be more like a good movie that's hiding all its cards is not necessarily half as interesting as a terrible movie where you're just sort of like, who is the person who made it? Like Ed Wood, the whole fascination with Ed Wood is he's such a terrible filmmaker, but he's such an interesting person.
Yeah. Who? What's the name of the narrator of The Great Gatsby? Nick.
Oh, Nick. Dr. Nick.
Dr. Nick. So is he a doctor? Okay. Well, anyways,
it's
Nick.
Dr. Nick. I am not actually a licensed doctor.
Oh, got it. Okay, Simpsons. I was like, wait, that sounds really familiar. Wait, I don't know why the name Nick Rhodes keeps coming up, but anyways, that's not his name. The point is, the Great Gatsby isn't so much about the Great Gatsby as it is about Nick. And really, the movie is about F. Scott Fitzgerald. The book. Well, the movie, maybe not the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you need to have it from this kind of slightly distant perspective because so much of Gatsby Gatsby is a projection. Like, the whole book is kind of about the unreality of Gatsby, down to the unreality of Gatsby's dream of reuniting with this woman who's honestly kind of boring and couldn't give two shits about him. Also known as Daisy.
Right. Oh, wow.
And then the fact he's a bootlegger, but he's trying to pretend he's like old money all of a sudden.
But anyways,
yeah.
Okay, next movie, Easy A, which if you're an adult, there's a good chance you haven't seen it. It's sort of in this weird place.
That one I did hear about. That it's the one with Emma Stone, and it's like a retelling of, it's either some Bronte novel or Shakespeare, but in a high school, and like somebody says that somebody slept with somebody, and they perpetuate the lie about somebody sleeping with the other person, so they still seem cool in the school.
She perpetuates it about herself.
Okay.
So it begins with a lie about her, and it makes her kind of popular. Well, kind of people look away and popular at the same time, and suddenly, so she continues it. So the Easy A, the A, it's A for adultery. It's the Scarlet Letter, but it's
Hawthorne. Okay, I was like way off the mark.
Oh no, it's nothing like the Scarlet Letter, but the A is a reference to the Scarlet Letter. But it's also
but it's not. It's definitely not an adaptation of a Bronte novel or a Shakespeare play. Pretty sure.
Probably not. At least not in terms of trying to brand yourself as, for lack of a better word, a slut. That's the whole idea of being really easy. So it's not just Easy A getting the grades, but also just easy adultery.
That's how we can make the podcast more popular. Is if I like start hinting that I'm kind of a man slut. Maybe that'll be like my next spoiling Citizen Kane.
Most people don't know that I'm a slut, but I'm very picky. So I'm not a very good slut.
Ron's a movie slut.
I am a movie slut. There's no question.
He'll sleep during any movie.
And I go to sleep by watching a movie. So. Which will probably be my second movie of the night. So anyways, I think we just talked about the premise. It's really funny. Again, it deals with social issues. They're within the high school, but they expand to, they are more, the word isn't global. They're universal.
Universal.
They deal with universal truths. How's that for what's the word I'm trying to think of? Cliche. How's that for cliche? No, but they do deal with universal truths as most good movies do. Good writing. So anyways, it's also got Lisa Kudrow in it, who I didn't used to be a big fan of her. I thought, on Friends, which I wasn't a huge fan of Friends. Now we've lost some more listeners. But I thought that Lisa Kudrow was making fun of her character, Phoebe, that she wasn't sympathetic to her, that she was actually mocking her.
Yeah, I think that Lisa Kudrow was definitely the most talented person on that cast, and you could tell that from, did you ever see The Comeback, that HBO show she did?
Oh!
Most of it's improvised, and it's not even in my top 10 HBO comedies, but the fact that she could work that quickly on her feet, the fact that it's basically this intense self-criticism of her own image, I didn't really see that level of work from any of the other Friends after the fact.
Yeah, she did. I did see a few episodes of that. I just remembered. Is it HBO?
It was HBO, yeah. And then they brought it back for a second season like 9 years later, and that was one of the first, like, after Family Guy, like, we're going to bring this show back from the dead things.
Yeah, so I don't have HBO. I've had the 7-day trial. So it was probably during the 7-day trial that I watched a couple episodes. But yeah, that was she. You could definitely tell that she was a good actress. She does have a decent range, and she is funny and this very biting humor. So, but I don't know if I disagree with my original conclusion that she was making fun of Phoebe.
I could believe that. Like, now that I'm thinking back, because I haven't watched any Friends in a while, but she definitely seems like the one who's taking their problems the least seriously, and that might just be a factor of Phoebe being, kind of the space cadet out of the bunch.
Right.
But at the same time, like, the rest of them, David Schwimmer is just fucking unbearable in, like, everything I've ever seen him in.
Was that it?
Yeah, I
You
guess
still
that's all I got. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean,
Wait, Matthew Perry always seems really smug, and I just I respect the public relationship he's had with his addiction problems, and however that's helped people deal with their own alcoholism, etc. But just the presence, I don't know how they found the two smuggest actors in Hollywood for that show, but they did. Matt LeBlanc, he doesn't seem smart enough to be smug, so he's inoffensive. He's like mediocre pizza. I'm not going to remember it later, but if it's there, it's all right. He's acting. He's showing up. He's earning a paycheck. But just David Schwimmer. Oh my God,
Matt LeBlanc,
kill me now.
Matt LeBlanc. He had a TV show that I think was 5 seasons. It's about these two writers from the UK who have a really
episodes.
Episodes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have you seen any of that?
I saw a little bit of that.
That sounds like you weren't a fan.
I can't remember anything about it, but that's better than Friends, which I remember parts of it and just I just don't remember it with any kind of fondness or positivity.
Oh, okay. Oh, I enjoyed it. It wasn't the best. But I enjoyed it, and he was making fun of himself because he was playing Matt LeBlanc as an the actor who is going to be on this adaptation of that TV show. They bring it to the U.S. Yeah, I thought. I mean, it was.
Well, did you ever see the Friends spinoff with him called Joey?
That was awful.
They should have called that Friendless, right? Or I Am Going to Die Alone or something like that because it's just him.
That was a terrible show. This was pretty decent. It probably helped that he wasn't the only person. There were actually 3 major characters, and the writing was better. It didn't focus on Joey, who at the end of the day he's fun and funny, but he's not great. He's not great as the main character.
I just realized instead of Acquaintances, I should have called my first film Friends and just waited for the lawsuit. Free on YouTube, folks.
Friends with an apostrophe. An apostrophe that doesn't belong there, but this way it separates it. I once met Matt LeBlanc, and I told him that he was not the best part of The Princess Diaries, but the second best. That didn't make you laugh, so I'm going to have to cut that out. And that maybe it was also the way I said it. No, I
wasn't sure where it was going because I thought to myself, maybe you actually did meet Matt LeBlanc and just, he's no Heather Matarazzo.
He is not Heather Matarazzo. That's why he's the second best part, but not the best. So, well, I don't know.
I feel like if I was Jennifer Aniston right now, I'd be paranoid and hate the world, right? Because every single tabloid paper's just been Jennifer Aniston gets old. Jennifer Aniston's husband leaves. I feel genuinely bad for Jennifer Aniston,
just for the way she's treated in the tabloids and the paparazzi.
Yeah, she was point blank for any kind of sexism, ageism, etc. She was all of middle-age America or younger America was projecting all of their fears of being old and or abandoned onto Jennifer Aniston. She's America's sweetheart for 5-6 years or whatever, and then immediately just ends up in this endless tabloid hell.
Yeah. But what's I think somewhat, I don't want to say misleading, but can cloud people's vision sometime, including my own. She's a good actress.
Yeah. Once she got out of Friends, she's done. I'm trying to. She was in Waitress. That wasn't a great movie, but she wasn't the reason that wasn't a great movie.
She was Waitress.
Good in Extract. She was good in the Switch. Jason Bateman was slightly better, but that's just because Jason Bateman is probably one of my top 5 male actors currently working. But she does. They both do a much better job than that script deserved in that movie.
Wait, which?
The Switch. She was pretty good in Horrible Bosses. She was serviceable. There wasn't a whole lot. The leads kind of they had all the best lines and had all the stuff to do in that movie. That's not a movie that really had a lot for the female characters to do. I think that's every Jennifer Aniston movie I've seen.
I'm looking up a Jennifer Aniston Steve Zahn movie that I really enjoyed, and I don't know how much distribution it got because I didn't hear about it until it came up on Netflix.
Man, I
or
haven't
something.
heard about Steve Zahn since like Saving Silverman.
Really?
I don't think so, unless he
Oh.
was like in the background of something else I watched.
Well, he's in a bunch of he's done
He's a
some work.
backgroundy kind of guy.
He is, and so the movie I'm thinking of, he's actually the star. With and Jennifer Aniston is. I'd say Jennifer Aniston is the co-star. Steve Zahn is the star. But she was. She was really good in it. The movie is called, I think it's Management. It's a movie that they were both in.
Jennifer Aniston, Steve. I mean, how many
Yeah, there we go.
Steve Zahn, Jennifer Aniston movies can there be?
Two.
There's two?
There's two.
Good. Lord.
I guess they were both in The Object of My Affection. But no, so this movie is Management, 2008. And how do I describe it? It's barely a rom-com, which is good. I don't want to watch a rom-com, but barely a rom-com works well. Although if you also, she was in The Breakup with Vince Vaughn, which is sort of a rom-com, but it's a rom-com about breaking up, not about getting together. So it's, or I guess it's a reverse rom-com. But yeah, you see in these,
rom.
you see in these and all these others just what a good actress she is. But anyways, I don't know how we got onto Jennifer Aniston from this, but back to the movie. It was Easy A. It is somewhere between a teen film and an adult film. I think it's appropriate for both. I do watch occasionally movies that are geared towards teenagers. You know, it's different from, say, the animated films like Inside Out, which was geared towards both kids and adults. They all could appreciate it. You know, there's stuff in it for everyone. Easy A, I'm not sure. I think it was sort of... No, Easy A was definitely in this category. I mean, there's a lot of teen movies aren't like that. So I'll start watching a teen movie, looking at the premise, and then stop after a bit when I realize I don't think this is funny or interesting. I think this is awful, but it's probably awful for me because I'm not the target audience.
I mean, I'm a sucker for teen crap.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Then you might enjoy more of the stuff that I've been that I've been pulling up on my TV. But another one, actually, there's some honorable mentions. I'll just mention it.
Oh,
now.
did we?
We're not done.
We get to the? Oh, okay.
No, we've still. Yeah, believe it or not, we're still not done. There's still 3 more in my 10 favorites. But anyway, but also, you know, Emma Stone is in this, and I'll watch anything that Emma Stone is in. Okay, another movie is called The Fits. It is the only short film on this list, and I want to say it's the only indie.
So it's a short, and it's
a short film about these girls who suddenly just start having these fits. They start shaking. Again, I watched it a little while ago. I forget the full extent of it. So it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's very bizarre, and they don't understand what's going on. And it's really about I'm afraid I'm going to spoil this. It's about growing up. And I don't think that's the metaphor is. I want to say the metaphor is pretty obvious from early on. I don't think that ruins anything.
I feel like growing up is one of those great uniter, universal kind of film things because a lot of people have a lot of trouble growing up. You know, there's people like well into their 70s. I'm not going to name names. They live in Washington, D.C., but they haven't grown up at all. So
I met someone. Okay, I did not meet Donald Trump, and this has nothing to do with being the best in the Princess Diaries.
William Barr.
No, I did not meet William Barr either.
Guys, yeah.
But I met somebody once who actually worked with him for a bit, and he said that hanging out with him was really fun. That he was a cool guy to hang out with. He said he's stuck. He's like a 16-year-old in the way he does stuff, but he's got a lot of energy and he's fun and all that. Now you take his politics and you take his beliefs and the way he treats people when it's not just hanging out with him like one-on-one or whatever, or in situations where he can't be a 16-year-old, like say the presidency, that maybe not work that well. But if you're just hanging out with him, apparently he's fun to hang out with.
Well, that's usually very true of people with narcissistic personality disorder. Like they have a lot of charisma, a lot of energy. If you're not catching them on a downslide, they They can be incredibly entertaining because they kind of rise to the occasion because that's where they feed, right? So I don't find that surprising actually.
Oh, okay, interesting.
You know,
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean narcissistic personality disorder. Like usually the reason why it falls apart is that the person, or why the person's like psychologically ends up falling apart, is they get this energy, they want this constant adoration, they figure out early on tricks that they can do to get this adoration, but at a certain point, the people without you put two people with narcissistic personality disorder in a room and they're going to start like beating the crap out of each other or something. But whenever it starts becoming apparent that this person exists for your adoring attention and there's nothing below that surface and you have to go on with your life or like doing crap like an adult, then they get really pissy. Or if they can become paranoid very easily because they can only see the world in terms of like, oh, do you find me this to be this like glowing shiny object or not?
And do you appreciate that everything is about me, right? Right. But so speaking of me,
speaking of you,
so I'm looking. So the fits. It's actually,
and I gotta say, like halfway into that, I thought you were gonna say that he met Donald Trump and said you were definitively not the best part of the Princess Diaries.
He was so mean, right? Because he believes that he was the best part of the Princess Diaries. So, anyways, the fits. I'm looking at my list now, and it is the only one that stars or has top billing of African American, and it is unknowns. They're girls, teenagers. So that's my diversity for this film. I do have, some of these were definitely in fact, a lot of these are starring women, but not people of color. And I don't know if that says something about the movie industry or if it says something about me. I don't think any of these are LGBT. Yeah, wow. Huh. Okay, let's see. I do have a favorite. So I know all of these are top 10 favorites in no particular order, but I do have one favorite.
Okay.
And that is Arrival. It was my favorite. First, it was my favorite movie of the year it came out in, I think 2 years ago. I think it was 2017, not certain. I could look that up, obviously.
2017 was 2 years ago, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm doing the math. I'm saying, well, I think it was about 2 years ago, so that must have been 2017. I was wrong. It was actually 2016. So
you might not have seen it until 2017, depending on how it was rolled out.
That is very true. If it was rolled out towards the end of the year,
like a lot of award season movies, they come out end of December. You might not see them until January or February. They might not even have a wide. Like I said, we're in a major city, so like most like selective release, early release kind of stuff would come through here.
But it might have been one that just showed in New York and LA, and that was enough. That's enough to be.
That's enough to be Oscar qualified. Yeah. Like that's why the IFC maintains that movie theater on 6th Ave in New York.
Oh.
So that anything that they're distributing, they can show it for a week and then jam it into the Oscar process if they need to. I don't know if that place actually makes money.
No kidding. I know we've talked about the IFC before and you hanging out there, and I go there every time. Every time I go to New York, I go down there.
Oh yeah, I love the place.
Yeah,
it used to be the Waverly
awesome.
Theater, which was like famous movie theater in New York. But so Arrival. So what makes it your favorite?
Have you seen Arrival? Or do you
No.
know? Oh, so Arrival, it stars Amy Adams and Hawkeye from the Marvel movies. Jeremy Renner. No, that's not fair. It stars Amy Adams, co-starring Jeremy Renner, and even we can go above that and say, and it co-stars some aliens. So aliens suddenly arrive in these weird-looking spaceships that are just kind of hovering over a bunch of places across the world, and there's attempts to communicate with them between people in different countries. And so you've got in the U.S. And in China and in Russia, and they're sharing some information. But these are because suddenly the whole world is dealing with what is a potential threat. And there's the military is involved somewhat too because they are a potential threat. But Amy Adams is a linguistics expert, and they fly her in there very quickly to go and try and decipher the aliens' language or to try and communicate because they do have this something that looks nothing like an alphabet. It's almost like they're where they're using this constant ink dye.
Like a Rorschach blot?
They're kind of like Rorschach
Like
blots.
a rubbing?
But they're Rorschach blots that don't last very long. They're kind of Rorschach blot. It comes out in the ink. It's kind of a Rorschach blot, and then it goes away and gets replaced by another one. I guess it's sort of like flipping the pages. So
the TikTok, whatever the kids are calling them now.
But try to do a Rorschach blot that's not like, what do you see? What do you see here? But like, that's the language. That's the writing system. So she's brought in to figure it out. To me, it was beautiful because language was the hero. It was all about linguistics. And I used to study linguistics. I was almost a linguistics major, but I couldn't handle a third major. But I did a lot of.
You were afraid of the aliens.
No, I love that's part of what makes it great. Okay, we've got aliens, we've got linguistics, and we've got aliens. Oh my God! And there isn't just some translating machine, or we've got to decipher what their alphabet is, or something like that. It is a totally different communication system that she has to bridge. Well, to be fair, she and the aliens have to bridge. But the biggest thing in there is that linguistics is the hero. So this is really the hotter favorite. I thought it was a really good movie, but it is also my favorite because for personal reasons. And I think it really dealt with it really well, and it was a really interesting challenge, a really amazing challenge, especially. Well, I don't want to say if they figured it out or not. If she figured it out, I don't want to spoil this because that is really important. Whether
but the aliens are on point, Amy Adams is on point, and the linguistics is on point.
Yeah. And maybe flip the order a bit. No, Amy Adams is definitely on point here. She's really good, and I know some people have a hard time with her and think, especially when she plays, I guess, the ingenue so often. But she, like Jennifer Aniston, she's a serious actor. She has a broad range.
Yeah. I mean, she was, to go back to American Hustle, like, she is amazing in that movie. I think the only real acting weak link in that movie is Jennifer Lawrence. She was great, and she was in Her, wasn't she?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because she's like, what's it say, the Joaquin Phoenix's, like, ex-girlfriend before he starts hooking up with his cell phone.
Yeah, that was Amy Adams.
Yeah, I can't think. I mean, she was in I don't know, what was that movie where, like, Clint Eastwood is her dad and Justin Timberlake? Trouble with the Curve. And she wasn't, I mean, the movie was terrible, but she was okay in it.
Okay.
And Justin Timberlake was like, he's affable. He seems like a nice enough guy. Like, I don't, when he goes on the TV, it's not like David Schwimmer. I'm not, like, screaming to get out. He's grown up. He made it out of the Disney vats without a big kind of, like, disturbing transition phase. Not that it was like Britney Spears or Shia LaBeouf's fault that they got thrust into this whatever by the Disney movie making machine and then had very public meltdowns. But JT, he's keeping it even keel.
He's pretty. He's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch, and he's pretty good.
Like,
so
a couple good records.
Yeah. Well, that too. Yeah, I meant in terms of movies and he's funny on SNL.
Movies, he's funny on SNL. He's like not really. We're not seeing him like come out as a closet Nazi.
Right.
So that's the bar in 2019. So I guess all the Friends cleared the bar as far as I know. I haven't heard about any of them being like secret or public Nazis, but
I don't know.
I
haven't really been following.
Yeah.
I haven't really been following on the Friends.
Friends and I have lost touch.
Yeah, we've lost touch. I mean, granted, watched a tiny bit of the Lisa Kudrow show, watched all 5 seasons of the Matt LeBlanc show, and a bunch of Jennifer Aniston movies, but I haven't been following up with them personally. In fact, it's very rare that I care about an actor or director or a writer's personal life. With the except editors are very important to me. No, I mean, editors make the film, but that doesn't make me want to get to know them personally or know about their personal life.
The initial place where I soaked up most of my movie knowledge was my mother had a subscription to People magazine for like 6 to 8 years when I was very young, and I did not realize I was on the spectrum. I just would like devour any kind of written material that was laying around. around, and I read cover to cover, because she left them in the bathroom, every issue of People magazine cover to cover for at least 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
So my head is just overflowing with this kind of crap.
Just imagine if she also used to buy Star and National Enquirer.
Good Lord. Weekly World News. I would know everything about where Bat Boy is now.
Oh, I used to watch that. Watch it. I used to read that a lot.
That was amazing. Well, there's a full, they have a full scanned archive of that on Google Books, like for free, because they went out of business.
No kidding.
And Spy Magazine. They got all of Spy Magazine.
They've got all of Spy?
All of Spy, yeah.
Oh, I was so sad when Spy went out of business. Yeah.
Spy was an amazing magazine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so back to Arrival was my favorite film of the last decade, but that's actually only 9 films. I'm going to mention one more film, and that movie is Bachelorette. So that's
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, not Bridesmaids, not to be confused with Bridesmaids. Different movie, I guess. Sort of.
I didn't like Bridesmaids.
Oh, really? So,
granted, I watched it on a laptop again, and I don't know. I just found it was like I guess when those like Judd Apatow style movies aren't pandering to your exact life situation, right? Because like I can sit through most of the, I enjoyed Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I enjoyed 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up. I didn't really enjoy Funny People, but that's another issue.
This is not like a Judd Apatow movie.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not. What more could you want out of a movie than Kirsten Dunst snorting cocaine off a table and having sex in a bathroom?
A little bit more Adam West, but we're getting there.
Well, we've got
Call back to the previous episode if you haven't listened to it. Find out why we think everything needs more Adam West. But no, that sounds pretty amazing. Bachelorette. I mean, that's one way to meet a guy.
By what? Being a bachelorette?
Well, by
snorting cocaine off a table and having sex in the bathroom?
Yeah. That's that's how I met Mrs. Wright.
You talked last time about how you met her. It was a little nicer than that. It was interesting. It was a little, twisted, but it was nicer.
You'll have to hear us on your podcast or mine.
Oh, that's what we talked
about. The full story of how I met Mrs. Wright.
Right. And that's probably, that'll probably go live before this episode goes live.
Right, but no, the first 3 Mrs. Wright, I totally met them doing coke and then having sex in the bathroom.
Oh, okay. All right. So you have experience with this.
Well, I mean, that's like, isn't that how your parents met?
Let's see.
If you say no, then you're definitely like a weirdo.
Yeah. My dad is rolling in his grave at even the suggestion. I think he may have tried pot once. And we had very little alcohol in the house. It was only for liturgical purposes, and even then we barely drank any. So,
yeah, my parents never had, they had booze in the house, but it was, my dad had like a $2 bottle of strawberry flavored liqueur that was not good when he bought it, but it was still in the cabinet literally 30 years later because I tried to drink some of it, and it was so bad. And I called my older sister, and she was like, "Wait, describe the bottle to me." And I was like, "Okay, it looks like this, and the price sticker looks kind of old." And she's like, "That was in the cabinet when I was in middle school." And she's like probably 14 years older than I am. And then I was like, "Dear God, I just drank like 35-year-old. Why was this still in the cabinet?" And it was...
Did it get you drunk?
Yeah, still...
I guess it had its main effect.
Yeah. Might have gotten me more drunk, or it might have developed into some kind of other drug.
That's what gave you the tism.
Yeah, that's what gave me the tism. 35. Imagine if every stupid thing I ever ingested gave me superpowers, and that's why people pay to go see movies now.
So Bachelorette, it's got Rebel Wilson is the bride, and how could you go wrong with Rebel Wilson?
She's great.
There was a remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Rebel Wilson and Anne Hathaway. Not a very good movie, but they were great. And this
how can you have that movie without Danny DeVito?
Wait, he wasn't in the original.
What am I thinking of?
Twins?
No, there was maybe he directed it.
No,
was
that
in
was
the 80s. It's like about horrible people. It's got.
no. Oh,
I mean, it's like everything.
Ruthless People.
Yeah, Ruthless
Yeah,
People.
yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. No, this was directed by Frank Oz. The original Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
So this was directed by like Yoda.
No,
Yoda.
not this one. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was. This
Oh,
was a remake, and that I think was a stage play. So this was another.
And this one was directed by Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda and Werner Herzog. But anyways, Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson are in a remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Not very good, and I didn't really like the original, and I've never seen the stage play. But they're hilarious, and this is a great example of where I say that
Whatever it is.
where I say that Anne Hathaway has great comedic timing, is a really good comedic actress, and I'm so glad that finally she's being used more in those roles. Unfortunately, as opposed to the more dramatic roles that she's been playing, or again, I'll use the word, the ingenue.
I mean, to be fair though, like her in that cat lady suit, like.
Well, yeah.
Like. Like that. Did you ever see that Jerry Lewis movie where he meets Shirley MacLaine and she's in like obviously a leather Catwoman suit, and he thinks she's actually like her. Well, no, in the movie they call it Bat Lady. It's artists and models, and he's just chasing Shirley MacLaine around the whole movie. It's like, I'm in love with the Bat Lady. And like I kind of understood that. That was my favorite part of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, because everything else I didn't really like. But
right. I don't think we'll lose too many listeners over that, because they'll be okay. A few will be like, how do you not consider that the best movie or the best trilogy ever made ever? But
Heath Ledger was the lipstick on that pig. He did a good job. I feel like he could have died for a much more noble cause.
Wow, that's morbid. How did we? Wow. Okay. Well, now speaking of how did we go there, back to Bachelorette. So no, but I say that because like you've got this Rebel Wilson is the bride, and then you've got Kirsten Dunst, Isla Fisher.
Oh, Isla Fisher.
And a third actress whose name I can't remember, who's recognizable. I've seen her and stuff, and she's hilarious. They're all hilarious. They're her bridesmaids. Kirsten Dunst is her maid of honor, and who I think she's the maid of honor, and she's the one she's also her wedding planner, and it's just sort of very tough as nails. But they tear the wedding dress and they get it stained, and they're going around all over the city because it's late at night trying to figure out how to get this thing replaced or fixed or whatever else. But also, you said the only thing that the movie could need more than Kirsten Dunst snorting cocaine off a table and having sex in a bathroom is more Adam West. It's got Adam Scott.
Okay.
So there's at least an Adam in it. So
he's an acceptable Adam.
Yeah.
I like Adam Scott.
Yeah, same here. Whenever I see that Adam Scott is in a movie, I think, oh, okay, I know I'm at least going to enjoy a little part of it.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably the best part of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, he was. Definitely. The only reason I'd rewatch it, I almost started rewatching it again because I finished the last OG, and I was like, wait, I want to watch more of this. Okay, maybe I'll watch another show. What do I want? I can watch Parks and Rec again. No, I don't want to do that. But the main reason would have been to see more Adam Scott.
I never finished Parks and Rec. I got to like the end of the 5th season, and then I gave up. I never made it across the finish line.
Did you not like the 5th season?
I feel like that show like hard peaked on the 3rd season.
Okay.
By the 4th season, it was just kind of spinning its wheels, but it had a great cast. It always had a great cast. By the 5th season, it was just sort of so incongruous with the actual political situation we were living through that it kind of like bothered me. And then somewhere in the middle of the 5th season, I was like, this isn't a show that I care about anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
Like it's too relentlessly, like the Ron Swanson character, he's this papering over of something that was revealed to be very ugly by that point in time. Because Ron Swanson, he would have been #1 Trump supporter.
Yeah. I think the show might have handled it having somebody else as a Trump supporter and him being like a secret I don't know, a secret Bernie Sanders supporter. I have a feeling he would have done something like that.
Well, it's just sort of, you have like this, you also have this kind of like, politics is about both sides getting along, when it was very obvious at that point that one of the sides was fomenting into this fascist insurgency and was not going to play nice. This is the same reason I turned on Jon Stewart after the rally to restore sanity.
Oh, yeah.
Is that he was doing this very disingenuous both sidesism, thinking he could turn back the clock to, like, and that didn't even work in the 90s. Like, anything post-Newt Gingrich, even a lot of stuff pre-Newt Gingrich, because I was going to say post-Newt Gingrich, but, like, Iran-Contra was pre-Newt Gingrich. There's one party that has consistently been acting as a borderline to actually treasonous bad faith actor, and another party that's willing to play stupid when it benefits their rich benefactors. I'm not going to say which party is which. And it just, like, at a certain point, Parks and Rec just didn't, that bothered me about it, I guess.
I think it would have been interesting if it turns out that if Leslie Knope was the Trump supporter, but that would have been, then the show definitely would have jumped the shark.
Well, I mean, it's like Leslie Knope thinks, oh, my relentless, good-natured optimism is going to, win this guy over. She goes out to Washington, and then she comes back a Me Too story. Like, that's really...
Okay, that's a little more, yeah. That's more realistic, but it's, yeah. So anyways, Bachelorette, I think... Well, there's so much inappropriate stuff that goes on there. And I say, quote unquote, inappropriate, a thing that, girls don't do that. And I'm using the word girls intentionally as opposed to, women, it's infantilizing women. Or ladies, proper ladies don't do that. It's like, oh my God, they do so many drugs. And they screw up so much, and they do, the having sex in the bathroom and who knows what else. They end up at a strip club. They're following the bachelor party there, and they end up joining them. But it felt a little more like, oh yeah, the women can be just as inappropriate as the men. And in this movie, the men were the side characters. And I was watching it trying to decide if this movie passed the Bechdel test, and I think it did, even though it was technically focused on the bride. It was the bridesmaids, but their raison d'etre, the reason that they were there and their main focus is they're together because of the bride. And why is the bride there? Well, because she's getting married to a guy. And
so then how many layers does it need to be removed? Like, I feel like that's a big unanswered question with the Bechdel test.
Yeah, and this is several layers removed from that, because now I'm starting to think of like, oh well, the wedding is really about the groom, and this is and weddings. Well, in this particular wedding, it was a male and female. That doesn't mean that that's what a wedding has to be. I got married to a guy. I'm also divorced, so I was gay married and gay divorced, which means I was married and I was divorced. Total tangent. Back to the movie. Back to the first tangent.
But it also means that you're hip.
There we go.
You're extra hip because you've seen both sides of it.
Yeah. I was on the steps of the Cambridge, Massachusetts town hall, waiting for midnight, because at 12:01 a.m. they started marrying people, and this was Massachusetts was the first state in the nation to legalize gay marriage several years before it was national. There
recreational, was not medical.
I'm confused. Oh, got it. Yeah. And I turned to the woman next to me, who just on the side, who happened to be transgendered. But it made it a transgender person who drove up from Providence just to be as part of this rally, and we were cheering every couple that was going up those stairs. It was wonderful. But I turned to her and I said, "Yeah, this is all great, but we know that we wouldn't have really come until we have gay divorce." So here I am. It's real.
You have to meet my friend John Jost at some point, because he made a movie and he's like the most glass half empty person I've ever met in my life. But he was like, yeah, he wanted to make, because he likes to make movies about current events, and he couldn't bring himself to make a gay marriage movie. It had to be a gay divorce movie.
Yeah.
It's called Blue Straight, ironically. But Strait, which is that's a land mass. But
yeah, I forget the name of the case that brought brought same-sex marriage to the Massachusetts Supreme Court, because they issued the order saying that it's same-sex should be on the same footing as mixed gender. We say same sex. We don't say same gender, even though. Anyways, well, I don't want to start getting into a discussion of sex versus gender and all that. My point is that I can't remember the name of the case. I can't remember the name of the couple, but they got divorced. So
yeah,
they were.
I mean, most couples get divorced. I mean, I remember when it was this like huge deal or not most couples. I think it's like 50. I think it's lower now just because people don't have the money to get divorced. I don't think it's like people necessarily like each other anymore. But yeah, it was the weirdest thing for a while, because it's like, people thought it was this incredibly insane idea to think that there was gay domestic violence, gay this or any, it's like sort of this weird, everybody wanted, and I'm saying this as like a straight cis man who was watching the gay marriage thing from the outside as a fairly young person. It was like this fantasy space for people to project things onto as if like they didn't exist in the world with everybody else. It was really weird in retrospect.
As if it was its own separate thing?
Yeah, as if like, well, as soon as like gay people can get married, they're going to show us how to do marriage right.
Uh-huh.
Like that's really what it was about at all.
Oh gosh, no. I'd say, it wasn't a way of showing how to do marriage right or how to do divorce right. Or let me rephrase that. It was no different it was no more right or wrong, or better or worse than straight or mixed gender marriage or divorce. It's no different. I'm
right.
pretty certain.
There was just like a minuscule chance you could double your wardrobe. That was the only real difference.
Yeah. Actually, there was. Yeah. The wardrobe was one thing. Although I weighed probably about 50% more than my ex-husband. So our wardrobe didn't go very well. And my feet were smaller than his. So there's the but potentially the wardrobe and the sex acts that you perform are most likely different. Or no, that's not true. Some sex acts are a little different than others than straight sex acts. How did we get there? I was talking about The Bachelorette.
Well, you are the Bachelor again.
I am the Bachelor. Oh, we were talking about the Bechdel test. So anyways, yeah, this movie totally passes the Bechdel test. It just happens to be about a marriage between a man and a woman. It is not about that. That just
did your marriage did not pass the Bechdel test.
No, it was about a guy. No. We were talking about men. No, but I guess it has to be yeah. It was two men, and talking about men. There were no women.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Talking about anything.
Yeah, it failed the Bechdel test like gloriously. So gloriously? Spectacularly. Very different meanings. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. I've probably seen it 3 times so far. And if it's no longer on Netflix, if it was on Netflix, I would have watched it at least a 4th time. So I can't get enough of that movie. I don't want to watch it too much and get sick of it because I think it's hilarious. I can't say that this one deals with serious issues and just sort of the quote unquote serious issues that an average comedy would be about. They're not serious issues. It's just a hilarious comedy. Okay. Well, that's the end of my top 10 movies.
Nice.
There's some movies that didn't make the cut. Here's 10 movies that did make the cut, but I was considering. I was like, are they? So one of them is Captain Fantastic. Part of the reason for that is that a friend of mine, his girlfriend said, in order to understand him, watch this movie and you'll understand him totally. The Duff, another teenage movie, which the Duff stands for Dumb, Ugly, Fat Friend. Designated Ugly Fat Friend.
Okay. I'm glad I didn't ask the question I was about to ask.
which was Don't Ask It, Don't Ask It.
Well, I thought it was going to be a movie about Hilary Duff. But
No, it is not about Hilary Duff, and I don't think she's in it. So,
good for her.
Yeah, no, it's a good movie, and it's really funny.
But that would be horrible if like the movie was named after you, and it turned out your last name, like the reason they cast you was because they thought you were the dumb, ugly, fat friend.
Right. Well, yes, correct. Right. Ugly fat friend is one thing, but dumb, ugly, fat friend. No, but and she's neither ugly nor fat. Not that either one would matter, but they're just meant pejoratively. Well, they're meant pejoratively because the idea is she has two best friends, so it's a group of three. But the other two girls are really beautiful, and they totally dress up and makeup and all that, and they're really popular. And then there's the third girl who is the Duff, who is not as attractive, and she doesn't dress up nicely like they do. She dresses down. So hence she is the designated ugly fat friend. Just not being as gorgeous makes her ugly. Not being as thin makes her fat. She is a friend. Anyways, another movie is Thanks for Sharing, which stars Mark Ruffalo. I'd watch anything with Mark Ruffalo in it. And it is a movie about it's sex addicts who are in a sex addiction support group. It's kind of funny. I'd say comedy drama. It's kind of funny. It's kind of serious and all that. Swiss Army Man, which stars Harry Potter. I forget the actor's name.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Thank you. Daniel Radcliffe as a dead guy, who is he's the star of the film, or co-star at least. Not quite a Weekend at Bernie's kind of thing. He's actually more active than that, despite being dead. Not a zombie though. Wonder Woman. Again, it didn't make my top 10, but yeah, I threw in one more. I was considering it. Threw in as another superhero movie on the good side, and it is more traditional superhero movie than Logan was. The Informant, which doesn't seem to ever.
Soderbergh.
Yes.
Yeah. I like Steven Soderbergh. I either love or I hate his movie, like Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I love that movie. Bubble. Did you ever see Bubble?
No.
That's a great movie. But then he'll make like crap like Ocean's 13 or whatever, or Ocean's 12 or Ocean's.
He did one of the Ocean's movies.
He did all of them. I'm pretty sure he did the Ocean's 11 with George Clooney. He was the director. Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea. That's quite a range.
He's like, and Schizopolis is a fucking great movie with Woody Harrelson. But yeah, he's one of those guys where he can turn off like commercial pap to like very good 90s indie stuff. Like there's literally a switch in his head. It seems like it's really crazy.
So the Informant, starring Matt Damon, is also is kind of funny. And it's wry. How's that for a word? Wry and clever.
Yeah, it's good in criticism, good in bread.
And like The Big Short, it's another movie that deals with financial stuff. This isn't. It deals with financial stuff and insiders and.
Yeah, I mean,
and
this has been a decade of dealing with financial stuff, so makes sense. It would be.
So I didn't realize that it was funny at first. I kept seeing it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I finally looked at it. Kept popping up as something recommended for me. And I finally looked it up and said, oh, wait, it says comedy. I think it said comedy drama or something like that. It's like, okay, I'll do that. So, Prince Avalanche, which stars Paul Rudd, another person who I'll watch everything with Paul Rudd in it. And I won't get into details. It's another, this movie probably did not get wide distribution. Paul Rudd and, no, I can't remember who else. I was confusing it with another movie with him and Paul Giamatti. But so Prince Avalanche, a serious man, because I was thinking I've got to include a Coen Brothers film on this. I love the Coen Brothers. I'll watch anything with them, the good and the bad. And even the bad is pretty good, or at least has some good stuff in it. But that was probably my favorite Coen Brothers of the year, and one of my favorites of the decade, and probably one of my favorites of the decade, just not on the top 10. Bernie with Jack Black, another person.
I like Bernie.
Yeah,
that was a good one. The Linklater.
Was it?
Yeah, that was the one about the guy in Texas that like is scamming the old ladies.
Yeah, that's right.
Because like Linklater's from Texas.
Right, from Austin.
He's like going back to sort of slacker territory, but with a very different vibe.
very different vibe. I mean, you throw Shirley MacLaine in there, and the vibe's totally changed.
Right.
Well, you put Jack Black in there, and the vibe's totally changed. Although he doesn't do his usual Jack Black kind of over the top. Over the top isn't the right word, but sort of totally wacky. I mean, the character is a little wacky, but in a very different way from the usual
I
Jack
ate
Black.
too much sugar.
That's his normal.
Yeah,
that's a standard
that's
thing.
like how does a man in that kind of physical condition have that much energy?
Right. Whereas
Like-
Bernie is the guy took a Valium.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of Jack Black movie. And if you want to see Richard Linklater do the other kind of Jack Black movie, you can always watch School of Rock.
Of course, yeah. Which is how did Richard Linklater do that? So
He's another one. He's like Soderbergh. He can just flip that switch on and off.
yeah. Okay, and one more, The Imitation Game, and I put that. This one I was kind of wondering, but I watched it several times and I really enjoyed it. So that's it for the honorable mentions. I figured I'd also say my favorite actors. Again, these aren't the best actors. These are my favorites.
Is a long.
Well, I put in 10.
If you're an actor in Hollywood, Ron, there's a good chance that Ron loves you.
Well, there's a very good chance.
And he's single.
And well, I'll start with my current favorite, Tiffany Haddish. I'll watch anything with her. I am in love with her. And I broke my no TV rule because I only watch movies. I don't watch TV because I'll start binge watching them and I'll stay up till 3 o'clock. I probably said before, I'll stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching as many episodes as I can. Finally, pass out of sleep, wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and think, I could squeeze in one more episode before I get ready for work.
And that's a really good preview for the next episode, in which I describe basically doing that for the last 10 years.
Well, so I start. Yeah, I can handle so much sleep loss. I mean, I don't sleep that much, but it's excessive. But actually, The Last OG is really good. I really got hooked on it. And Tiffany Haddish is a lot more serious than some of her other stuff. It shows actually she has a decent range. I'm totally in love with her. Another one, Paul Rudd. Watch anything that he's in. I am totally in love with him too.
You hear that, Paul?
Yeah, Paul. I'm
Give us
single.
a call. Well, give him a call.
Yeah, or Tiffany, Paul, either one. I'm happy. Both. Yeah. And literally, it's not just like, oh my God, for Paul Rudd, it's like, no, I'm bi. So yeah, they both work.
I mean, you were the best part of Mac and me.
Yeah, we talked about you in great detail in our Mac and Me episode 5. All right, Terry Crews. Also, I love
He's
him.
hilarious.
Yeah. He was the best part of Boston 911. Boston.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was 110% the best part of that show.
Yeah. I was like, there wasn't enough Terry Crews. Give me more Terry Crews. I rewatched, what was the movie about the future? Now I've suddenly got Listomania in my mind. Anachronism.
Future anachronism. Hot Tub Time Machine?
No. I've watched that several times. Well, John Cusack goes back to make fun of his own movies. But anyways, there was another. Yeah, I watched a movie that I didn't think was that great the first time. I kind of enjoyed it as amusing the second time. Was it a Mike Judge movie? Shoot, it was one of those. Anyways,
Office. Well, the only ones.
Who did Office Space?
That was Mike Judge. Yeah.
Okay, so another movie he made that's set in the future.
Idiocracy. Yeah,
Idiocracy.
He's great in Idiocracy. Yeah.
You see why I was thinking of Listomania? Idiocracy. So yeah. Terry Crews is great in Idiocracy. I watched the movie just so I could see Terry Crews.
More Gatorade.
Mark Ruffalo. I'll watch anything that Mark Ruffalo is in. Emma Stone I think she's hilarious and all that. Anna Faris. Oh my God, I think Anna Faris is so funny.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, I've even and you know what? The House Bunny has both Anna Faris and Emma Stone. That's how good The House Bunny is. Okay, not exactly the best movie. I've watched it at least twice. Jack Black, another person I'll watch anything he's in. Wow, I think everything so far has been things that I'll watch anything they're in. I guess that could tell you my favorite actors. Steve Carell, I think I'd watch anything with him, or at least I'll put him in my favorite.
He was by far the best part of The Office. He was doing circles around everybody else on that show.
Oh yeah, once he left The Office, it was like.
Because the thing he had that like my talking is falling apart bit down so perfectly. And like and that's really hard to, like, it doesn't seem that hard to pull off when he's doing it because he's so good at it. In the history of cinema, the only two people I can think of that can pull that off with that kind of consistency, Jerry Lewis and the great Mexican comic Canteen Floss. That's like very good company. But yeah, that kind of like, I've started a sentence and it's going somewhere, and now it's just like it's hard to describe, but like every time he's on in The Office, he just kills it.
And I want to say it wasn't so much that the show jumped the shark. It's Jump the Shark is from when
Fonzie literally jumped the shark. Towards the end of Happy Days.
So instead of jumping the shark, this was as if Fonzie left, and then who cares about Happy Days once Fonzie's gone?
Well, oh god, what was
Joni Loves Chachi?
Well, no, Ron Howard's character on Happy Days, what was his name? Richie or something?
Richie Cunningham.
Yeah, Richie. He did actually leave the show for the last 3 years.
But did that matter that much?
I
mean, it changed.
Eventually, well, I guess that was after. There's a young Crispin Glover acting like a lunatic as like this juvenile delinquent, and then Fonzie goes in to try to straighten him out. That is amazing. I've not watched any of the rest of like late season Happy Days besides obviously the clip of Henry Winkler jumping on water skis over that show, which is, it's a thing of beauty. Go watch that after you're done with the podcast if you haven't seen it.
The actual jumping of the shark.
Oh yeah, have you ever seen that? You've seen the clip before.
Yeah. I might have seen the episode when it first aired. Another one, and actually Jason Bateman, and I actually just brought him, Dan mentioned him to me earlier, and I realized, Jason Bateman, I think it's great. Hey, I've loved him since
Teen Wolf 2.
No, not.
It's the better Teen Wolf.
I'm not even going to have that discussion. And I don't want to have that on as a movie for the podcast, honestly. Because anyways,
bad memories.
Yeah, well, no, just uninteresting ones. Jason Bateman. So it wasn't so much Silver Spoons that I've been a fan of him in. Was for short. When he left Silver Spoons, there was a short-lived TV series called It's Your Move. It only last one season. His mom was Beverly D'Angelo, and the guy who moved in next door and started dating his mom, and who was his nemesis, who was Jason Bateman's nemesis, was the neighbor on what was not Ted Bundy, the Bundys.
Ted Bundy.
No, but the Bundys. What show was that? The Christina
American
Applegate.
True Crime. No. I don't. Married with Children.
Married with Children. Thank you. He played the neighbor, the male neighbor next door. So he was Jason Bateman's nemesis in It's Your Move. It's unfortunate that it only lasted one season, but it
is
also
that available anywhere, or is that just like one of those things that disappeared to time?
No, I think a friend of mine I think has every episode, but it's buried and stored somewhere on VHS. But I think it is available. But he had a sidekick who was, of course, short and fat and stupid, sort of a duff, but who followed him everywhere. And he was hilarious. His name was Eli. And I met him. My friend wrote a song about him. And when he first told me, I asked him, what's the song about? And he explained to me, I can say It's Your Move. It's like, I love that show. Oh my God, I remember it. So we watched some episode of It's Your Move. And then I looked him up online, the guy that played Eli. And he was, my friend was living in San Francisco, and Eli was living in San Francisco. So I found his email address, sent an email to him, and asked, hey, by the way, and I even told him about the song, and he was like, sent a link to him, and he thought it was funny, and we met up, me, my friend, and a couple of his friends, and we had dinner with him. I think maybe we went to a pub or something and hung out a little afterward, got some pictures with him. Yeah, it was great.
That's really cool.
But I did not tell him he was the best part of The Princess Bride, because he was possibly the best part of It's Your Move. But anyways, yeah, I've been a big fan of Jason Bateman 10 since then. Not so much so.
So you didn't like Teen Wolf 2?
No, I didn't care for it that much.
Okay,
No,
I still haven't watched it. Actually, it's just sitting in the basement. I picked it up because Jason Bateman, but
I was indifferent to it. Maybe we could watch it. Maybe we'll watch it.
There's so many movies on the list at this point.
Yeah.
Rainy Day. That'll be a rainy day backup.
Okay, and that's 9. Number 10. This is actually 2 people, but it's a unit. Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes as Jay and Silent Bob. Now, I'll watch any movie.
They're inseparable.
Yeah, they're inseparable. They're a single character. They're 2 sides of a coin, or both parts of the same side.
If one of them was to show up without the other one in a movie, it would be too depressing. It would be like seeing your parents get divorced or something. It would just be, I wouldn't be able to watch it if it was just like Silent Bob strikes out or something. Like I couldn't.
No. Yeah, one without
so
the other.
Sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'll see any movie with them in it isn't the same. That means half of Kevin Smith movies and nothing else.
Right.
So, but yeah, I just think they're great, and I'd watch them just for that. A couple of notes I want to make is that Arrival is actually of the past decade. It's the only movie that is not only my favorite of the decade, but it's in my top 10, not top 10, but top favorite movies ever. I don't have a top 10. I think it's like top 17 or something. So, but so it made it into the list, but no others did. There's a movie I haven't seen, and I really wanted to see it, but haven't figured out yet how to watch it, because I got to figure out with 2 other people, 2 friends of mine, on when do we feel like spending 2 hours and 45 minutes reading subtitles. And that's Toni Erdmann, another German film.
Which was in the Cahiers du Cinema top 10 of the decade.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it in some other lists. I'm like, oh my God, I've really got to see this. But I even had a thought. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to watch this just for the podcast. Like, no, that's not. I'm going to wait to see it with my friends. That was the whole idea. But I wonder if I'd watched Toni Erdmann, if it would have made it into my top 10. I would not be surprised if it did. But I would not be surprised if it didn't. If it wasn't.
We'll have to see.
And finally, I really wanted to put Inglourious Basterds on there. I am not a Quentin Tarantino fan, but this was one of the few that I really liked. I don't like him. I'm not.
I don't like him because he's just like very mediocre a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's just like, and he gets shoved down your throat. It's like broccoli or something. Like, you have to like this, and you're just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Reservoir Dogs was his best movie that I've seen, at least. And it, like Pulp Fiction, it's just a big style exercise that doesn't have a point. I didn't see Jackie Brown. I saw Kill Bill, and I don't remember anything about Kill Bill except Uma Thurman in a yellow jumpsuit, and David Carradine shows up at some point.
Did you see Inglourious Basterds?
No, I haven't seen Inglourious Basterds yet.
See, World War II comedy, Hitler comedy. It's great. So, I'm so glad it was the Jewish revenge fantasy that we had been waiting for 60 years for. Yeah, something like that.
Right.
So it was, I don't want to ruin anything, only because you haven't seen it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd say this movie's been around for 10 years. But that's the problem. It was around for, it was a 2009 movie, so I couldn't put it on the list, but I really wanted to. So, anyways,
I like Death Proof. Death Proof was fun.
No, I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It was his half of Grindhouse.
Oh, I didn't like Grindhouse.
With Planet Terror. I saw it in the theater. I was like, okay, this is exactly what was advertised. I was in high school. I saw it with a friend, and we were like, oh man, it's like lady with the machine gun leg. And, well, wait, no, that wasn't his half of it. I didn't like Death Proof. I just remember the overall experience being fun.
Oh, see, I had the opposite. So I couldn't care less about which was the best part of it, because I couldn't stand any of it. So I don't know why I went to see it. It certainly wasn't because it wasn't because it was a Quentin Tarantino movie, because that's not enough to entice me to go. But I was hearing all these great things about it, so I went and saw it. And like, oh,
yeah, it's like
have to sit through the rest of this.
2 movies for the price of 1 ticket. And you get those fake trailers. Yeah. And I saw with my friend, who is like a complete nut for any kind of terrible, schlocky, low-budget horror stuff. So he was just eating it up, Yeah, I feel like I definitely review movies more favorably if I go to see them with somebody who's just really into it, because I think I just enjoy seeing seeing someone genuinely enthused about something.
Oh, I like that. I have to think about that.
That's probably because when we went to go see Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, it was just a room full of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I watched that on my own on like a laptop, I would think this is like garbage. But
that's quite possible.
Quite possibly.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of when.
Oh no, there were genuinely funny parts of that movie.
Oh yeah. Okay, so maybe not garbage, but it's like, well, I don't know. This is.
It wouldn't have been the same kind of experience.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I would have come away with quite as positive a feeling.
Yeah. It was definitely it was a great feeling just being surrounded by all these Kevin Smith fans. I'm like Kevin Smith super fans. I'm like, wow, these people are out there. They exist. I didn't realize that. I'm mostly in isolation. I'm still, wow, you like Clerks? You like Kevin Smith? I just turned to Dan and said like, oh wow, I can't believe that. And also David Bowie. Did you notice I just put a new sticker on my laptop?
Oh yeah, nice.
It's David Bowie. So I've got on my laptop on the front.
Yeah, there's Dante from Clerks, David Bowie, and a ukulele. Yeah. I almost called it a guitar because I'm culturally insensitive.
Yeah, there's only 4 strings, not 6. And the Dante picture says on there, I'm not even supposed to be here today. And on the back, do you know what the back is?
That's the Loki helmet.
That's the Loki helmet, and that covers the entire back. So I feel like there was something that I didn't finish saying, but it doesn't matter because it's now been 2 hours for a 1-hour episode on my favorite movies. So I think this episode is wrapped up.
Yeah, so let's sign out for now. This has been Dan.
And this has been Ron.
And this has been a nominee, and a very special nominee with the top 10 movies of the decade.
A special end of decade nominee.
End of decade. We'll see you again in 10 years with one of these, but we'll see you next week with one of those, I guess.
Yeah, well, we'll see you next time with Dan's top 10 TV shows. All right, take care, everyone.